सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Every Veda contributed to various Upanishads, hundreds of Upanishads. That somebody listed out some 660 Upanishads. Somebody said 220 Upanishads, 228 Upanishads. I have come across myself about 108 Upanishads. So there is vast literature of Upanishad in the sense that what is basically the idea of these Upanishads are the highest form of knowledge, and this is also called as Vedanta. Vedanta does not mean the end of the knowledge, but the idea is that in the human pursuit, human being is the only species on this nature, in this nature, continues to pursue. And in this human pursuit, we are going through various uh, collecting knowledge of various things, knowledge of various items. And in this particular pursuit of collecting knowledge, that the highest kind of a knowledge that really helps us is supposed to be the Upanishad. That's why there is ultimate knowledge kind of a thing, it is said. In fact, in this particular Upanishad, Prashnopanishad, it comes from the Atharva Veda. Atharva Veda gives us three major Upanishads, most important Upanishads. One is the Prashna, second is the Mundaka, and then Mandukya. In fact, all three are regarded very high in the Upanishad parampara. And they are very much sadhana oriented in the sense that they can be utilized. The knowledge that is there given in the Upanishad is useful for applying it in the sadhana aspect of it. And directly it is connected with the Brahmika knowledge or Brahma pursuit. I mean, when we say Brahmika knowledge, it does not mean the knowledge about Brahman. This particular knowledge itself is Brahman. That is the idea. Satyam Jnana Manantam Brahma, when we say that Jnana itself is Brahman. And that's what is the pursuit of this particular Prashnopanishad. The same thing is about the Mandukya Upanishad also, one of the briefest of the Upanishads and most powerful Upanishads. In fact, whenever such intricate, difficult texts are given in such a abridged version, in fact, Upanishad language itself is very precise. One may not be able to understand that, follow that, therefore, that they have given what is called as the other text, which can really expand the scope, the ideas of the Upanishad, not compromising with the original theme, but giving the elaboration of that. And this is what is known as the Prakarana Grantha. Prakarana means that whatever the truth that is there, highest form of truth, and that has been further elaborated in the form of various texts. Like a very simple way we could take it, that Bhagavad Gita is one of the Prakarana Granthas of the Upanishad. That means to say, whatever the discussion that goes on between Krishna and Arjuna, in the battlefield in the form of Bhagavad Gita also gives what is the essence of these Upanishads, knowledge that is there in the form of easier, simpler language we can understand. And because that it is easier, simpler language, it has much greater elaboration. Similarly, that there are other Prakara Granthas. Prakara Granthas are written by the particular author, whereas Upanishads, they are from the Vedas. The Veda Vyasa has given the Apaurushaya, that's what they say. Prakara Granthas have an author. Like, for example, Shankaracharya has given the Prakara Granthas, like the way Viveka Chudamani or the Atmabodha, Tattvabodha. When you look at these texts, whether Tattvabodha or the Viveka Chudamani, the ideas that are presented in that text, they are also the same ideas that are there in the Upanishads. In fact, sometimes this Prakara Granthas bodily lifts the ideas from the original text of Upanishad, and further elaborates on that particular thing. In Mandukya Upanishad, Gaudapada has given the Prakara Granthas of the Mandukya Upanishad in the form of four Prakaranas. But they are so important, the Upanishad itself is so important and it is so concise. That's why Prakara Grantha becomes part of the Upanishad in the case of Mandukya Upanishad. That's why one who studies Mandukya, he also studies the Prakara Granthas that are there embedded in that. Whereas this Prashnopanishad is a very precise Grantha. And of course, these ideas that are given Prashnopanishad are found in many other texts also, elaboration of that. But this is from the Atharva Veda, and there are two types of Upanishad. They call it as and let me give you the idea that why we have so many different Upanishads that are there, even though there are four Vedas. As I always look at Vedas as the collection of the information that was there in this particular land, people have collected that and uh, uh, recorded them in the form of various texts. So when they collected the information, it's not in order. So, but they would have visited various saints, realized souls, settled in various ashrams or the gurukuls and all that. They were teaching these ideas. The student and teacher discussion that goes on, and that's why it is called as Upanishad. Upa means sitting close to, ni, nischayena, sat has three different meanings. One is what is the truth, what is original, and second thing is avasadayet. That means whatever that is supposed to be something that we need to follow. Or visarati. Visarati means explanation that is given. Avasadayet, that which gives you freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from unwanted things that we are holding on to and trying to directly take us towards that which is supposed to be the ultimate knowledge. So Upanishads are different. Therefore, the texts about Brahmika knowledge are the original knowledge of oneself. Why we say Brahmika knowledge and original knowledge of self? Because the questions that are taken up in these Upanishads are the most fundamental questions. And one fundamental question of that nature is where is this all creation coming from? There is one source of creation called as Brahman. And similarly, one of the questions that has got us the who am I? What's me? What is that which we call it as me? But the answer for both these things are the same. That means to say, whatever that is Brahman outside is whatever that is Atman. So that's why there is a very strong Upanishad mantra which says, which comes out from the experience of a student, and that is, I am Atma Brahma. I am Brahman. And this truth, I am Atma Brahma, I am the Brahman, you can also see that that realization was there in the case of people like Al Hilal Mansur, who said An al Haq, or various other places, the Upanishads and the other texts have given that. In fact, the very idea that yeah, when in Bhagavad Gita, when Dhritarashtra says Dhritarashtra Vacha, Sanjaya Vacha, Arjuna Vacha, there is the moment that Krishna comes, Sri Bhagavan Vacha. He could have easily written as Sri Krishna Vacha, but why did he give or Vasudeva Vacha? Many times even Arjuna has addressed him as Hey Vasudeva, but in spite of it he says Bhagavan Vacha. The idea is that he was in that realization at that point of time, Krishna. The individual is not there, it dissolved. All that what comes from him is nothing but the God spelt or God's words that are coming out. Therefore, it is called as Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Just because that it comes as Sri Bhagavan Vacha, it does not mean that we should not subject it to the logical, rational kind of a platform. We have to do that. In fact, in many other cultures that they have given an idea that once it is said by God, then you don't question it. But here it is not like that. You can question it. That's the beauty of the Indian culture or the Sanatana Dharma, where the questioning is regarded very high. The questioning is regarded very high. Very question is that it is we have this Upanishad, there is Prashnopanishad. Prashna means question, and there are six questions that are involved in this Prashnopanishad. Therefore, it is called as Prashnopanishad. There is another way also. Normally, the Upanishads are not given the numbers, but the name nomenclature comes from the very Upanishad, the way that the word starts. So, like for example, there is another very important Upanishad, the Ishavasya Upanishad. It starts with the mantra Ishavasyamidam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat. So therefore that words that are given in that mantra, Ishavasya, is picked up as the Upanishad. But then Prashnopanishad, it is not that way. It comes as a discussion, but all right. But then, because it contains the six Prashna, very important thing is this question, therefore, it is given as a Prashnopanishad. On the other side, Katakopanishad, Katopanishad, it's also discussion between the student and teacher. And the student there is Nachiketa and Yama is the teacher. Beautifully, the teacher. Death teaches us a lot of things, and Yama represents the death god. So therefore, that Kathopanishad also in the form of question and answer. But then, before that question answer, they have given what is called as a simple story in Kathopanishad. There is a story where Yama, Nachiketa is there, his father is there, and there is a discussion. The father is doing some yajna, yaga. So, and then he gives to the Brahmanas the dana. It's not only the father that is, but even anybody else when we are doing the dana, we try to see that whatever that is we give, whatever that I don't use it, I give it. Not useful for me, or less useful for me. That kind of a thing we give, and that's what even he was doing. Vajasane yaga, and then the discussion then goes on, and then he asked his son to go to Yama, and then he goes to Yama, and there the discussion that goes on. The story portion is of not that great important because it is just to establish the connection, but the philosophy portion is very important. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita also, the story portion is less important, but very interesting thing there also. You can understand the strategy of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna says to Krishna, they both went there to fight the war with Kauravas. But before the war started, everything is set, everything is ready. All that it is in a moment that they have to give a go to the war. At that point of time, Arjuna says to Krishna, Senayor Ubhayor Madhya Tatam Stapaya Machyuta. Stop the chariot in between both the arrays of army so that I can plan the war strategy. Very fair. Usually, that's what the head of the chief of the army will look into planning state, his strategy, working out his strategy. But then, when he says that Krishna could have easily taken him in front of Duryodhana or Dushasana or somebody else, so that they were the people who were his main enemies, that they have done the things which he cannot approve. And not only that, they were his own cousins, Arjuna's cousins. But instead of all that, Krishna takes Arjuna in front of these two people. And that's what in the first chapter he says that Bhishma Drona, these are the two people in front of them. And these are the people Krishna, Arjuna respects the most, grandfather and the teacher who taught everything for him. So naturally, what happens is that the moment that he takes them in front of Bhishma and Drona, so much of respect comes for him, for those people, and then there is a conflict starts. And that conflict is the one which created Bhagavad Gita. If Arjuna did not have that conflict, Gita would not have started. But then that conflict was necessary for bringing out not just only Bhagavad Gita, but to see that what's the extraordinary wisdom in the case of being in this world. And the most difficult situation, like a war field, somebody can really bring about Vedantic philosophy while living. Naturally, the other things will become easy for them. So that's how the whole idea is given in such a way that Krishna strategically keeps both these uh, Arjuna's army in front of both these people, Drona and Bhishma. So therefore, that Arjuna says that I will not kill them, I will not fight them, I will run away from this battlefield. But he was conflicting within himself whether to fight the war or not fight the war, or to run away. Is it impulsive? Is it something which is useful? In fact, he was not even asking for any good solution, but he was only asking them an approval. He was thinking that Krishna will give approval to him. So all these things, the finally what need to emerge out of it is the spiritual journey of Arjuna. That is why Gita was evolved in that particular circumstances. In the case of Prashnopanishad also, there is what is called as the story behind before that. The story is a small little aspect of it. The story is called as Akhyayika. Akhyayika is where the it sets up. But then Akhyayika also gives us the idea of certain things about this particular journey in the form of Upanishad. And here this Akhyayika is that the teacher is supposed to be Pippalada, and the students, they go to Pippalada and you can come here, you can take this chair. Take those stairs are there. You can put it in front. Would like to. Now, Upanishad knowledge has three different kinds of approach towards this Upanishad knowledge. One way is that Adi Bhautika, and that's what is basically the way that Adidaivaka, and the third is Adhyatmika. Adi Bhautika level is the one where basically it's about the creation, about the Bhautika world, physical world that is there. And the scientist is worried about that, scientist is working on that. Our people also have given some ideas about that. So, what is the way that how the creation takes place, and what are the things which are responsible for that? This is what is the way that they have given. But what is the difference between these two? In Bhautika itself, that the modern science has looked at body is separate, and then later on, an arrangement of body has given rise to what is called as mind, etc. All those things. They're still working in that area. But then gross body, physical body that they have very clearly understood of the recent times only that they have said the physical body and the energy, they are not two separate things. The physical and energy, they can be interchangeable. So looks like that the energy was there and then that became a physical body. And this is the kind of a thing that they have the conclusion about that. But the way that Indian philosophy looks at different way. In fact, Mundaka Upanishad also takes up this view. As you said, these three Upanishads, Mundaka Upanishad also gives the idea about how the creation takes place. In fact, the model that Mundaka Upanishad says that it is like the way that from this body of the spider that the web is created. The thread comes out of the body of the web, and then so therefore the material causes also the spider, and also the intelligence causes also the spider. So that means to say for any creation to take place, these two things are necessary. One is the intelligence behind it, and the second thing is the material. In physical world, it's a normal, usual physical world. Material cause is supposed to be separate, and then intelligence cause is supposed to be God has created with the material. So this is how they have given the idea that first material is created, all the material was there, and from that material he managed the creation, as if some technician, some expert is there sitting above, and he made the creation. So they are totally distinctly different, these two things. Whereas in the case of when we talk about the way that Mundaka Upanishad talks about the spider, the material cause and the intelligence cause, they are all one and the same. So that is the direction Indian philosophy works. But that was the model. It looks like a model, but is it like a reality? How close it to the reality? There is another model also that is used in the Mundaka Upanishad and the other places, which is very commonly used, is that the gold ornament. The gold is the material, ornament is what we see outside. You cannot see the ornament without the gold, or you cannot see the gold minus that ornament. It has to be there. So this material causes the gold, and intelligence cause behind that is the one which makes this argument or ornament. So when we see the world, what we are seeing is the ornament, but one can see behind that is the gold. That's what a lot of the philosophers have recommended us to do it from the ancient times. So this is one way of looking at it. So this way, trying to look at what is called as the origin of universe. This is one aspect of it. It is about Adibhautika. Bhautika means reality outside. Mandukya Upanishad also gives the idea of Bhautika means the gross world outside. Jagrata Sthanaha. When we see in the wakeful state, the world that is there, it's all about the Bhautika world. And that's what he talks about Adibhautika. But then I have a different view from based on the way that our scriptures talk about it, a little different view. And probably that makes sense about both these things, material cause and intelligence cause, put together, we can make use of it. And that is, Brahman is something which is supposed to be all possibility. It has got the total freedom, mukti or moksha. That's what is the idea of Brahman. So it has total freedom, total anything it can become. But then what happens is when we say about the freedom, an absolute total ultimate freedom is that where it has a freedom to give up its freedom also. So this is a very important idea. We can get it from the various scriptures like that. Like for example, this creation, when we call it as, the Shastras call it as yajna. Yajna is the way that the creation has taken place. That's an idea. I don't want to get into that detail. But while talking about that, in the Rudra Chamaka, we say that prano yajnena kalpitam, apano yajnena kalpitam, yano yajnena kalpitam. So these are all the various things which are coming out of yajna. And also Prithvi, Yapah, Tejo, Vayu, these are all yajnena kalpitam. But then finally, when it comes to the yajna, yajno yajnena kalpitam, that means to say, it doesn't come out from something different. It comes from the yajna itself. So yajna has an ability to create itself and to give up itself to become something which is lesser than that. So freedom is that where the freedom can give up of a lesser freedom, so that what is lesser freedom is something which can which is useful for interaction, transaction, and the purpose of creating that kind of a thing can be possible. And that's what a chair is really there. You can take that chair. There's one chair in this room also, you can take it. ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಆ ರೂಮಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಓಕೆ. ಅಥವಾ similarly, we have the concept of Swayambhu. That means to say he comes out himself, is by himself that he comes. So this concept is also very unique. And once we have this concept, it becomes easy for us to understand that. So the creation is something which is taking place. Whatever that has got the total freedom limits itself so that something of a lesser freedom interaction takes place. And this we can see in the Mandukya Upanishad, in Taittiriya Upanishad also. It's a very beautiful idea. This is that Annavan Annado Bhavati. These are the two things that are there. That means to say, he becomes food and he also becomes hunger. And the hunger belongs to the food. So therefore, the food and hunger, they can interact. And what is the interaction for? To take you to that sense of supreme satisfaction. Once again, that Brahmic sthiti. Yes, when you are hungry, the food is given, that you see that the satisfaction that you get. Like the way that Annavan Annado Bhavati, and that same thing can be applied to various things. Like, for example, the breath, the air is provided so that you feel the breath. So these are all the things which are provided like that. So both these things are giving an indication that this is how the creation has taken place. Now there are various ideas that are given in various Upanishads. So this is what is Adibhautika. Adibhautika is basically how the creation has taken place. People in the modern science also says that it is the cell, the basic structure, and the cell is created by DNA, RNA, etc., all those things. But the second concept that we have is Adidaivika. Adidaivika concept is where the idea of what is the moral that we follow, punya and papa, the karma and activity that we do it, why do we do what activity that we do it, why do we follow a discipline. These are all the things which are supposed to be daivika. It comes from the deva. Before we go to that, another important idea is that the rest of the world has taken this as forces. Like for example, wind is a force, sun is a force, and this is a force, and all that. Whereas we have taken it a different way, we have given the position of gods. The idea what we have given the position of gods is that when you take them as the simple energy, then man always thinks that he is master of those energies. He can manipulate, he can take control of that and all that. Not that he really gave any control on the sun. He is not deciding when the sun has to be there, when the sun has to set, where the sun has to set. Nothing like that. Only thing is he understands, and then when he understands, but the ego doesn't stop that. He's only understanding. He calls it as he is mastering the man conquers the nature. I don't know in what way he conquers the nature. But that's way the ego of the Western. Whereas the moment we develop the idea of that they are the gods, then we develop what is called a Shraddha. We have a respect for them. Therefore, then we say that we don't conquer them. They are there to give us so that we take the best use of it. It's like the way sun rises for us. In order to get the best use of the sun, I open my window, I open my door for sun to come in. If I don't open my window or door, sun will not come inside. He will not make any effort to come inside. He will respect me. So therefore, basically, that Adi Daivika has got these ideas where I do for the sake of something. And I recognize them as supposed to be the forces. So Adi Bhautika does not have that sense. Adi Bhautika is there right in front, you do it. In fact, many times you see that even the animals have this Adi Daivika instinct. Like, for example, the food is there right in front and then eat. Hunger is there, eating. And that portion is supposed to be Adi Bhautika. Then the food and hunger together. You put together. Don't worry about who has that food, whose food is that. Just go and grab the food and finish. That's all. But then it's below the animal level because animals also have certain instinct of Adi Daivika. That means to say they just don't eat food like that. There is some degree of some compassion, there is some degree of some divinity that they see that. I was quoting some YouTube example there. It was very touching example where somewhere in the East European countries that follow, he had a wolf, a huge wolf in his cage, and then every day he has to feed the wolf with meat. And then wolf would eat meat and all that. So one day he was going out for about 1 week or 10 days, something like that. He was going away. What to do for 1 week or 10 days to put the meat? So what he did was that he put a donkey inside the cage so that the wolf would eat and then prey on that, and then because naturally the wolf preys on donkey, so therefore he kept the donkey inside. Went out for 15 days, for maybe a week or something like that. When he came back to his shock or surprise, he found out that both of them were without any food and then they were inside the cage. The wolf did not eat donkey. Compassion was there. The Daivika force is working. How can you do that? And then when the people have seen that, then they scolded at him, saying that why are you first of all keeping the wolf? The wolf is supposed to be in the forest, leave them in the forest. And then poor donkey they took it inside, and they didn't even put food to the donkey. The donkey is also emaciating, and what is this nonsense? So they scolded him and then got it released. And then naturally the wolf ran away into the forest. And then to his surprise, what he is seeing is that almost like which he did not notice, but it was happening probably every day. Few days later, 15 days later, 20 days later, he noticed that donkey would come and stand in front of this cage where he was actually put inside, standing there. And the evening, then they would take all these, sheep and all that to the grazing. When the sheep go back to their place, and then he noticed that this wolf that he had kept inside the cage was waiting there on the other side of the farm, so that in the forest edge it was waiting. Oh, so, but That wolf would not eat these sheep, he would just spare. But then he would wait till the sheep are gone, then he would come running, and the donkey is waiting for him to come. And when he comes, then both of them, they enjoy, they dance, and they lick each other. They had such became good friends. What an extraordinary, wonderful, divine aspect that is there. So it's not just only the food, not just only the, but there is an aspect what is called as the what you do, compassion, etc., etc. This is what is Adi Daivika. Adi Daivika is where you see this Punya, Papa, Swarga, Naraka. All these things are in Adi Daivika. We have created the whole lot of things there so that what happens is people follow the good values. It's not the question of that somebody has to insist them to do it and all that, but then they naturally do it. A lot of rituals are there to see that you do for the sake of getting the good results. The house has to be good, so that house warming ceremony there somebody departed soul that you offer that. These are all that Adi Daivika practices that we have, and the Shastras will give the details of that. They have worked out all the details based on various different knowledge system that they had. It's not just only what they give, like the way that they have such intricate details that are there. Recently, we had that Mahasoma Yaga. What an intense and intricate details that are there that they follow. All these things are there at the Adhyadaivika level that we follow. But then the third level is Adhyatmika level. So one is the Adi Bhautika, and second thing is Adhyadaiva. It's not that the question of that one rejecting the other, one complementing and rising above. That means to say, whatever that is supposed to be the physical level detail that we need to take care of it, Adi the Bhautika. Yes, we need to follow that. We have to take care of that. But then, apart from that, Adi Daivika level, that we need to see that that is something which what is supposed to be Adi Bhautika is at the body level, Adi Daivika seem to be at the mind level. It gives a satisfaction at the mind level. For a wolf, that was giving a satisfaction to come and play with the donkey. For the donkey, he was missing the wolf whole day. He was there for 7 days, companion with him. So that was something which is at the mind level. So all these levels are there, mind level, and that's also Adhyadaivika. And then the third is Adhyatmika. Adhyatmika is where, see, mind is also there, you are. So there is Adi Bhautika is about the world outside, Adi Daivika is the mind about you, Adi Bhautika is the world is there in front of you, the details of the world are there. Adi Daivika is that you are there, and then your emotions, your values that you care for. And for that you cater. But the Adhyatmika is that where neither the world is there nor you are there. Both these things are dissolved. Only Brahman is there. So a science which at the whole knowledge that gives us the idea of only Brahman that is there, and that's what is basically the Upanishad knowledge is all about. Upanishad directly takes us towards that Brahman. It's neither the question of Bhautika nor the Daivika. So if you try to look at the Upanishad ideas that are there, see Upanishad also has some Brahmanas. That means to say there is some portion of knowledge, but at the same time some portion of, as I said, that all these akyayikas, the story aspect of it and other things that are there, which are basically material aspect of it. But then they are not important. Don't get into that. That's why I said that Nachiketa, whether Nachiketa could go to Yama or not, don't worry about all those things. That's only Akhyayika portion of it. Akhyayika is a structure that you give to see that establish a connection between Yama and Nachiketa. You need to give an established connection. That's what is there. In fact, this Akhyayika portion, a lot you see in Yoga Vasishtha also. So many stories that are given, and the stories finally lead you to the idea of whatever that the philosophy that is behind it, which is directly taken to the Brahma sthiti, Brahma experience. Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman Sashnate Sarvan Kaman Saha. So therefore, basically, that all this deep inside the intricate knowledge of the Vedas that are there is what the Upanishad give us. And this Prashnopanishad is one such Upanishad which gives you, takes us through that kind of a deep inner knowledge. Now, the whole idea is that, I said that, how do we understand like that Brahman, which is supposed to be pure consciousness and which is pure possibility of becoming anything and any that freedom is there, and that gave up freedom to become something which is of a lesser freedom, and that is explained in the Taittiriya Upanishad very nicely. And he says this God Brahman that is there, so kamayataha, he desired that bahusyameti, let me become many. It's not based on any particular reason. That is just a sport that I become many. I'm one and I become many. So this gives us a very important message. The creation seemed to be like a fall. People think of it from Brahman, the fall. Yeah, it looks like fall because we don't have the freedom. We don't have this. We don't have that. But it's not a fall. It's his own sport. Its own sport. He just wanted to become many. His freedom to become many, and many it has to become only because by giving up some portion of it, become two, so that two become multiplied. So therefore, the many becoming is like giving up its freedom to become something which is lesser freedom. But then ultimately for what? Go back to that freedom. So this idea therefore is a lesson for the sadhaka also, to say that we should never think that we are a fall or we are lacking something or the other. We are the part of the same. Like the way the sun who is there on the top, the sun ray that comes to us is one and the same thing. So that kind of a feeling that one can have it. As long as that we are here, we are here. The moment that we leave, we go. There's no question of feeling depressed. There's no question of feeling negative. There's no question of making, and it is his wish. So kamayata. That's how I have become. So that means to say, every moment of mine is a celebration. There's somebody I've been counseling. He's in USA. So last almost like 6 months, 7 months. Is suicidal thoughts. I want to die. I'm not successful. And this is. Are you are in US? You are a doctor. You are everything. If you say like that, what will happen to me? You try to influence me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not in USA. I'm not in here. Sitting in a small little apartment. But anyway, people can become that way, can make themselves negative. That's what this idea that you are nothing but Brahman. All right, you are here for some time, and as long as that you are here, the urge is to see that how I can go back to Brahman. That is the only thing. All right, I am from there, so I have to go back to that Brahman. And this is only for the sake of play that I am here. But how to go back to Brahman? That's what is the idea that it gives. Sat Upanishad, Sat Gati Visarati Avasadayati. Gati means that it is the goal, final goal, is a movement towards that. The Upanishad has a goal, purpose. That for what? Upanishad does not have a goal. Upanishad has a goal for us. Talks about the goal for us. So therefore it's Upanishad. And Visarati, that means it expands us. See, we are confined, and all the confinement, whatever that is there, I can come out of it, and then Visarati, that's also there. From there, Sat Visarati. And third, the etymological idea is that Avasadayati. Avasadayati means it finally dissolves itself into. Ramakrishna Pandit should say that the Avasadayati, like the salt doll went to measure the depth of the ocean, became part of the ocean. not come out of it. So every Upanishad starts with a Shanti mantra. Shanti mantra belongs to that particular Veda. So all the Upanishads of that particular Veda adopt that Shanti mantra. Now the Shanti mantra, people call it as prayer, but I don't want to call it as prayer because nothing to pray. It's only to remind about the journey towards that peace that we are going. Therefore, it ends up into Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So therefore, essentially, that the Shanti mantra often also gives the essence of that Upanishad that is there. They giving you in that particular direction. So this Upanishad gives us the idea. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhirya Jatraha Sthiraihi Angaihi Tushtuvang Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayu Swastina Indro Vruddhashravaha Swastinaha Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinastakshyo Arishtanemihi Swastino Brahaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bhadram Karnefi Shrunuyama Devaha. Here Deva is that all these forces, all these things that are there, which we called it as gods, as Deva, constantly give me the idea that I can see, I can hear something which is good. Bhadram, auspicious. Not just simply good, it is auspicious. But then, very often, what happens is what we hear does not depend upon what we want to hear. Eyes at least have eyelids, ears have big ear lobes, but then they don't help you to close the ears. Not only that, what you don't want to hear, you hear more. What is not said also that you hear. Hearing is not in our control. But he says that let me hear whatever that is good. Those days when all these telephones were not there, it's all crossbar system. People call from one place to another place. So Mullah called his friend. His friend called Mullah from Bangalore saying that, Are Mullah, kaise ho? He's in Hyderabad. Kaise ho? How are you? Everything is fine. Fine. How is your son? How is your days? Everything. Then he said, until that time, everything was okay. But then he said, Are Mullah, what about the money that you borrowed? Mullah said, hello. Because those is in the crossbar system, that the clouds, disturbances and all that. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear? Can you hear? Now I can hear. Tell me. Okay, sir. How is your new house? Good. Your locality. Acha, that money that you hello again. So meanwhile, this operator comes in between. They used to jack up the phones and all that, and then the operator comes up. Paisa, weather is very clear, line is very clear, and you are also hearing very clear. Yeah, I hear very clearly everything. But then suddenly, what happens? I don't know what happens. I don't hear. So did you hear? I said, yeah, it's so clear that I can hear it. What did you hear? Money that you borrowed. Oh, you heard it? Yeah. Then you give it. Selected hearing. So karne bhihi, we have to use a selected hearing for the sake of it is not that what we hear, but it is what the people tell us. See, that comes into our ears. Now the Bhadram Karnefi Shrunuyama Devaha, that means to say, can I make use of all that what I hear for my benefit, for my growth? Whatever that I hear. There are so many things which may be useless, but there may be something which really, maybe one sentence which can really help you to see that how you can grow. And that, for that, you need to have such awareness to see that you pick it up and then go ahead. So therefore, give me that awareness. This is like the way that yo yona prachodayat, when we say that, Give me that viveka, the discrimination to see that I can make use of it. Because every time that, and another thing is a lot of times when people praise you, you have to be very cautious because that may not help you to. Whereas people who criticize you, they may help you to grow. So all these things are to be looked at in that particular direction. There may be something that might come up to see that how it can really help you. And there's another thing also that is there is the world is your mirror. Otherwise, you don't know what you are without looking into the mirror. And whatever the mirror says that you accept it. Mirror says that you are tall, mirror says that you are stumpy. It accepted. The mirror says. The world is also like the mirror. The world mirrors you, whatever that. But then what happens is that Shrunuyama Devaha, it's not whatever that only the hearing takes place, but it goes through that filter of that particular person, filter of that your own hearing. So many filters that we use in between. That's why it is not as it is. It is through these filters. If I see clearly, if I hear clearly, that means to say, even my eyes are also not misguiding me. That is the kind of thing. So, therefore, there is a portion that is there which is a media. That's why it is called as immediate hearing, immediate seeing. That means without any media in between seeing. I don't use any media in between. And then I see it is immediate hearing. But then we don't use it that way. So that way, when you really see, when you hear something, Bhadram, and that if you clearly see that, yes, out of this, what is that which is useful for me, then you can go ahead. In fact, always what happens is that very precious things, they're in such tiny numbers, tiny things that unless until you are careful, unless until you are have the patience to pick it up, you will not be able to get it. And unfortunately, what happens is the whole training is to see that what is negative, what you don't will not be helpful to you. You only look at that. That's how the long time back, Washington DC, there was a conference, and then Lakshmi Kumari ji from Kanyakumari, so she was the president. So myself and herself, we were there in that conference. There are a lot of things which are mismanaged in that conference in Washington DC. She said so beautiful. She said, Raghu, let's go around, look at everything. See that what are the mistakes that we should not do it in our conference. What are the things that we can really repeat in our conference? You just make a note of it. See, it's a beautiful idea, a thought like that. So we should be able to do that in the normal day-to-day life also. The world is nothing but something which is offered to you like a package deal. This package, we remove whatever that is not necessary. It has done its job. Remove that and then go ahead with whatever that is done. Bhadram karnebhi shrunuyama devaha. Not only that it is something which is good, but it's also auspicious. That means to say, good has two important directions. One is that which is pleasurable for me, but that which is taking me to a spiritual level. So I just hear something what is pleasurable, but can I hear something which is spiritually helpful for me? This is Swami Chinmayananda's book that we are following. And there was a Chinmayananda talk was going on in National College grounds in Bangalore. Wonderful talk. It was very, he is full of stories, full of incidents, anecdotes, and all that. Somebody who was really popular is whole of Bhagavad Gita like that. But then he also conveyed a very beautiful His message is very simple. He makes that chart, BMI, PFT, OAT, and then he sticks to that. It's a very simple way of doing it. The whole Vedanta bringing down into small little formula. It's a nice thing that he has done it. And then he has any shloka, anything like that, he always takes it towards that. And then it was very nice talk that he gave where he coming out, but then interwoven with so many anecdotes and then stories and all that. While everybody was happy while coming out, I asked somebody, so what's the message that you got from Chinmayananda's talk today? It's very enjoyable. He is very entertaining. Chinmayananda is not there to entertain you. Has stories and all that he said, but to convey you something which is spiritual. So it's not the question of only that which is pleasurable for me. I see something which can take me towards that spiritual idea. That's what is, I have to be very careful. Bhadram karnebhi shrunuyamade. Bhadram pashyema akshabhihi yajatraha. Same way, whatever that is there I see, can it give me the idea of the spiritual growth, spiritual development? Bhadram. Sthiraihi angaihi stushtuvam sastanobhi. Now this he added so that it will also cover the earlier thing. My body should be steady, stable, and it is strong. Angaihi, that means all the sensory organs, all the motor organs, and everything should be sthiraihi, angaihi. Hale and healthy, perfect angaihi limbs, tushtuvan sastanobhihi. And tanubhi, by this body, I should be able to recognize we have such a strong, powerful physical body and senses so powerful. For what? For all these things. To see that Sirai Angaihi Tushtuam Sastanobhi Gashema Devahitam Yadagi. It is to see that I should be able to do the service to the God. Vyashema, that means to say I pray, I I give up myself, I offer myself for the sake of God's service. God does not require any service. God is fine. He doesn't require anything to do. In what way that you are, it has to be understood in the sense that God has become many. When we say that it is to manifest Himself, He has become many. That means to say, I should be able to project divinity within me. That's how I serve Him. There's no other way serving Him. People serve God, going and putting a nice 1 crore kirita to God and give some bangles to God, this and that, all those things. But you go out here, all kinds of nonsense when you come out of it. Where is God really wanted that or what? What is the way that you do? Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu. So that basically to see that how I can manifest the divinity within me, so that what happens is that somebody who sees me, who looks at me, can also feel that yes, God is there. They can think of God, they can remember God, and they feel that God is available. So sthiraihi angaihi tushtuvam sastanobhihi, that is powerful, strong. It's not that bodybuilding, but the idea is to see that whatever that we have, for lifetime, lifelong, I should be able to do that for the sake of service. That's what the prayer also, that is there. Jivane yavadadanam sat pradhanam satostam. Whatever that I take, I give more than that. Ityesha prarthanaspakam. That alone is my prayer. Swastina indro vruddhashravaha. Swastinaha pusha vishwavedaha. Swastina ksaksho arishtanenu. Swastino bruhaspati dadhatu. Indra. Indra is the leader of all the gods, or in other words, also Indra is supposed to be the mind, the one behind the mind, or the all the collective mind together is supposed to be Indra. See, this is a beautiful concept that Indian philosophy has, like the way that when we die, the earth portion it goes to the earth, fire portion goes to fire, this and that, like that. In fact, very simple thing is that I breathe out and then it becomes air, and then it goes to somebody else, it sustains somebody. So therefore, this is how basically It's a constant, continuous merger that's taking place in the world outside. All the five elements. Not only these five elements, but we are also continuously, what's happening is that my thought becomes like part of the mind and then cosmic mind and then picks up somebody else, it takes. So this is another thing that our Indian philosophy has always said, like the way intelligence is like that, that's a particular, like the way five elements that are there, like that these things are also there in the nature, and, and then that play with that. That's what UG UG Krishnamurti, J Krishnamurti is during that time contemporary, he was there UG. He used to be in Bangalore. He always used to say that there is nothing like you thinking or I thinking. That they're all space. You pick up and then thought, think of it and then leave it back. Just send it back. Just use it and send it back. Like the way that you take some water and use it, it's like that. You take some thought and use it, and there is nothing like your thought, my thought. It's a very profound idea that no thought belongs to you, no intelligence belongs to you. So that's what Indian philosophy. Somebody was complaining recently that they're so intelligent, but then we have not patented many things. I said, look, it's against our culture to patent. It's against our culture to say that I own the knowledge. Knowledge belongs to me. There is nothing like knowledge belongs to me. There. Sorry? Swasti means may good happen, may bless. Vruddhashravaha, may he bless us. Swasti means basically to bless us in the right direction. In fact, that's what the swasti, the beautiful swasti that we say is that sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, let everybody be happy. Bless them. There is one idea behind it. The idea is that this rishi does not say something which is not possible. It is possible for you to be vruddhash, that you can become intelligent. Therefore, that you have become, you are capable. Therefore, he blesses. So therefore, we ask Swastina Indro Vruddha Shravaha. Vruddha means basically ancient. Shravaha is the god that is there, most ancient, and that's what is mind. Behind all these sensory organs, that is their mind. And then actually sensory organs are the mind's tentacles that are coming out. Mind itself is, as I said, that mind gives up its freedom to become an eye. Mind itself gives up its freedom to become an ear. The senses, they become again, there's various gods that are there. They're also gods. Swastina Indro Vruddhashravaha. Swastinaha Pusha Vishwavedaha. It's a very interesting concept is that Pushan, Surya, sun. And then sun radiates in all directions. And not only that, see when the sun rises, that you see that every object becomes suddenly uh, bright, shines. So everything to be made clear. So Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha. All the knowledge, all the ideas that are, it comes from the sun. Sun is the one. But sun is not there. Where is the question of? Everything is merges into sun, everything merges and it comes back. Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha. Swastina Staksho Arishtanemi. So Arishtha, that means bad. Takshya is supposed to be wind. Taksha is also supposed to be the bird, the celestial bird, the Vayu, the wind. See, the whole idea is that that is the bird. He protects us. Swastyanastakyo Arishtanemi. Wherever there is supposed to be the negative, wherever there is supposed to be bad forces, quickly gives us the relief from that. He is the Vayu. He is the one which is supposed to be the bird, celestial bird. Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadhatu. Brahaspati is the is the teacher of the gods. So Brahaspati is the teacher of the gods. Yeah, Guru of the gods, Guru of all the gods. So protect us. Huh. The what he does is Brahaspati, the dhatu, that means to say give what? Give us the spiritual knowledge, spiritual gains that we have, spiritual growth that we have. Let him protect us. The whole idea is to see that it's not because of me I'm doing it, but because these various celestial forces who are doing it. So the whole idea is to see that it's not me, but it is the idea of, see, wherever that there we have this idea of respect comes, so then naturally the shraddha, uh, that is what brings about the ego dissolution. So otherwise the same knowledge, same health, same these things can become our ego, when we don't have this idea of surrender to the higher forces, then they become our ego. So basically, the idea is to see that how you dissolve that here ego, and then these things are the ones that are there. Then, for what happens is that at all these levels, at the body level, as I said earlier, at the bhautika level, at the body level, or at the physical, at the gross level, we have the shanti peace, the whole shanti. From the gross level that we get the shanti, the gross is there only to give us the shanti. Anything that we come across is to give us that peace. And the second thing is Adidaivika. That means anything which is supposed to be the mind, intellect, mind and internal. This is what is first is the gross world and second is the subtle world. So the whole of subtle world is for me to give the satisfaction, shanti, peace. And third is the adhyatmika, that means spiritually that I become the peaceful person inside. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So that's what the prayer that we say. So with this, it gets into the first sutra, and that first sutra we take up next time. We finish it now. This is starting prayer of that. So let's say this prayer once and then close the session. ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभेर्यजत्राः अक्षभेर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्थिरैरङ्गैः तुष्टुवागं तुष्टुवागं सस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्यो अरिष्ठनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ओम शांति शांति शांति. Like many Upanishads, the sentences are in the logical way, in the order, and then there is a way, swara is there that we need to follow. This Upanishad doesn't have any of those things. Each word is independent by itself. So we'll have to try to look into that. as we go ahead. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.